Welcome back to ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. This is Catching Up with Kakaako. We're going to talk to Kawika Kaluhiwa and Auli'i Mafi. They're both from McKinley High School. One's a student, one's a teacher. We're going to talk about Kakaako Makai, aren't we? We'll be right back to do that. Welcome to the show, Miss Mafi. You're a teacher at McKinley. Wow. They talk about Dan Inoue. He went to McKinley, didn't he? Or did he go to Roosevelt? Where did he go?
I believe he came to McKinley, and so did Duke Kahanamoku.
Oh, is that right? Wow. I hate to tell you this, but I knew Duke. Does that give my age away? Okay. And Kawika, you're a student over there. What grade are you in?
I am in my sophomore year.
Some people think that's the best year. Yeah.
They do.
You can still be a newbie and you don't have the pressure of graduating and going to college, Okay, anyway, McKinley's a great school. It's been a great school for a long time. So let's talk to you first, Ali. You touch base with your students, including your Native Hawaiian students, and you must have discussions over what's going on in Kakaako Makai about the OHA project there and, the, what do you want to call it, the end of the park, so to speak. What kind of feedback are you getting on that from them?
It's surprising, but there is a large majority of our student population of Native Hawaiians here at McKinley. And they're upset, but yet not understanding why we are going through this issue right now with OHA and what they're doing to Kakaako Makai. For me, as a Native Hawaiian, I try to introduce my students to the topics that are happening right in our neighborhood, Kakaako being in our district. And there's so many high rises and buildings being built in our area now that they don't seem to understand what's happening to our district. And, Kawika being one of our students, we are basically worried about where do we go after we're done with high school? How do we afford to live in our own district? And what's going to happen to our future?
Well, let's talk about you for a minute. You're a teacher. You're a Native Hawaiian. You're in touch with that community. This is going to be if it gets going, it's going to be a very expensive project because of all the environmental remediation and issues we don't even know about yet because there isn't, an environmental impact statement. We don't know how expensive it's going to be. We only know it's going to be very expensive for any developer. And OHA would not be the developer. OHA would contract it out to some other developer, maybe from the mainland, and that developer builds it and sells the units, and OHA gets whatever is left over. But the problem is those units are going to be as expensive as any condominium units in the state of Hawaii, any island, especially Waikiki and Ala Moana, because of the cost of building and the cost of remediating and the cost of doing an EIS and comporting with the EIS. And so the question is, how much? We know it'll be at least $1 million. My guess is closer to $5 million because it's shoreline property, and that changes the marketplace. So, you have any plans about moving in there, Ali? Maybe the DOE will give you a special dispensation to allow you to do that.
I doubt I'll be able to afford it on a DOE salary. And you mentioned the cost of what it's going to take to actually start the project. It's astronomical to think that we as Native Hawaiians will be allowed to live where they plan on building these high rises. Just to paint a picture, McKinley, we have such a beautiful, I want to call it practice football field. And the problem that we are facing is that this project of the football stadium, the athletic complex, has been in the making for the past 15 years. And you want to talk about cost. The football field was allocated, or the athletics, stadium and facilities was allocated $4.7 million last year. And we were told that's not enough now because that quote came from pre-COVID. And we can't even get a football field where our players can play on, let alone we're talking about Kakaako now, where we would probably not be able to afford to live at. And as a Native Hawaiian, I'm scared. I'm afraid for my children. The unaffordability of what's happening right here in our islands, and that sooner or later, our children are going to seek residence in other states because that's pretty much the only place they can live.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk to Kawika for a minute. Kawika, you know, you have to look at your life in these islands going forward. You have to figure out, just like Auli'i says, what you're going to do, where you're going to be, how you're going to afford the things you want to have, you know. And what's your view of Kakaako right now? I mean, for me, I take my dog down, I walk around, I see the ocean, I see the sky, I see the mountains. It's beautiful. It's the only open field, you know, large open space, public space left, really. But, you know, what do you think of it? I mean, what does it mean to you right now in terms of your daily life?
It means the world to me. You know, it's hard to go wherever you want to go and have all of these problems spring up as you're going through. Like when you're walking through these areas, you tend to notice that there's quite a bit of problems that are occurring. And as a student going through this and having to focus on school academics and all that stuff, it's a difficult thing.
There's a bill in the legislature that would reverse a standing statute that prohibits residential and residential high rise, of course, by anybody on Kakaako Makai. And OHA is now engaged in a full court press to repeal that bill so that it can build this 40-story condo right there on the shoreline. And I wonder how you feel about that.
As it is now, it's good as it is now. It doesn't need any like condos or anything in that area. They can totally go someplace else and find someplace else to build. And they don't really need to take away from the nice scenery there. And if they do, it's most likely going to affect the surroundings and the people that live there.
Well, what about the units themselves? Do you plan to move in? Maybe you have the $5 million that Auli'i says that DOE is not going to give her as a teacher. You got a plan to make a buku bucks here and be able to move into a $5 million condo?
I don't think I'd be able to do that, honestly. That seems kind of like a lot to go through.
For me too. No chance, no way. What about the Native Hawaiian community? You know, your family, members of that community. Do you have any idea how they feel about it?
I feel that they might not really like it so much. Some may pounce at the idea of having more housing and all that stuff. But there's people who might think realistically, as in prices, money, and how much it would be to be there. And it would be pretty difficult for them because there's already so much problems with money-wise going on.
And how about the Aina? You know, how about the open spaces in our city trying to hold on to some kind of relationship with open spaces, with the green grass, you know, and the water and the shoreline? How do you feel about that?
There should be at least open spaces and places to go, maybe to look at, maybe to hang around. And if it were to be taken away, that would be pretty devastating to me, especially because I love open spaces. It's a great place to go to when you need to clear your mind, or like when you feel like doing something when you don't have anything else to do.
So you talk about the cost of housing. You talk about you know, the high rises, the lack of affordability, really, for all of us, including Native Hawaiian. And you know, you talk about the loss of the environment, open spaces in general. Do you think about those things in the context of whether you will live here after you graduate from Auli'i's class and take off? Where are you going to go? You're going to stay here? Do you think about going to the mainland? There are as many Native Hawaiians on the mainland as there are in Hawaii. And that reflects an out migration from Hawaii. So, what are your thoughts about it?
After I finish high school and all that stuff, if jobs pay well enough, I will stay here. If there's no jobs that pay well here, I'll most likely move to the mainland and work there, get all of my stuff there, maybe even go to college over there.
Ali, is this consistent with what you know? I mean, what of the Native Hawaiian kids in McKinley, do they feel the way Kawika feels, or they feel more or less passionate about it? Are you worried about them taking off? Are you worried about them being dissatisfied with the shrinking natural environment of our city? How do you think, they are moving on these issues?
I hear a lot of their worries. I want to say that a lot of them want to go to college. They want to better themselves, get a good education, get a good job. But even at the good job level here in Hawaii, it's still unaffordable. And it's not only injustice to our local Hawaiians, Native Hawaiians, it's an injustice to a lot of people here that we can't even afford to live in our own state. And so many of our students here, as Kawika had mentioned, we have a lot of foreign students, but we have a lot of Native Hawaiian students. And our Native Hawaiian students are kind of trapped. They don't know what to do. Miss Mafi, I want to go to college, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to the mainland because there's more opportunity. Miss Mafi, I can't afford it here. Kawika, his mom, his brother live in one place, and it's unfortunate because the rent is so high that the options may come down to, well, Kawika, you might not have to go to college. You might have to just go to work. And that's, I know, one of the concerns Kawika had mentioned, that he wants to better himself by getting a higher education, but it might come down to, I have to help my mom because just her working does not afford where we're living. And I see that as it's just an injustice to the next generation that does not allow them to stay here or to afford something on their own, where all the families have to come in and live together just to afford one place to live. If not, we're on the streets.
Yeah. Well, and then when you add the fact that under this plan, this OHA plan, those units will not only be expensive, they will be so expensive that local people of any level of local people wealth won't be able to buy those units. So who's going to buy them? Well, very rich people from somewhere else who may or may not live in those units. Maybe, you'd be able to see right through that building and it'll be a corporate retreat for somebody far away. And that just seems to me to be really a misuse of the asset because, however we do it, we want to provide housing, ample, sufficient, good housing for everybody. And we haven't been able to do that. Maybe this administration, the Josh Green administration, will find a way to do that. He cared a lot about it in his administration as lieutenant governor. So let's see what happens. But right now, there's nothing particularly promising about it. And I feel it's like a strangulation, one generation after the other. So how much of McKinley High School is Native Hawaiian?
20% of our student population is Native Hawaiian. And that's a very high percentage that people don't realize. Even though we're in the downtown of Honolulu, you can say our district lines are from Palama all the way through till, I believe, somewhere around University and on up into the mountains in the valley. But our Native Hawaiian population, it's unfortunate because many of our students are the statistics aren't good. We don't want them to become a statistic in the incarcerated rank or the homeless rank. But that's where you see a high percentage of the Native Hawaiian population. And if we can allow them to afford a place to live, that would be the most rewarding for us Native Hawaiians to have a stable roof over our head, to know that we can afford, and to allow future generations to be here in the islands with us.
And so, if you were appearing in front of one of these committees that is actually hearing the bill that would, or bills, there's a bunch of them, that would repeal the existing prohibition on residential in Kakaako Makai, what would you say to them?
It saddens me. I call it heva. In the Hawaiian language, heva is wrong. The Hawaiian people of old used to take care of each other. And with OHA, this would definitely not take care of our Native Hawaiian population. It's something heva. It's something that we need to take a look at in how will we justify this to the future generations that we find in the other statistics that we do not want them in. In order for us to be better, we need to be allowed to return back to our land, to become sustainable, to be able to populate our land. And by this, bills that are being passed, written, sold, Hawaiians never sold land. We never owned land. The land belonged to everyone. And we lived off of the land, and we took care of the land, and the land took care of us. And with these bills, there's no malama or taking care of anyone except those, like you say, Jay, the rich and the wealthy that can afford it. And so it is time to allow our Native Hawaiians to speak up, to say, hey, this is wrong. Number one, yes, you're taking away the scenery, the beautiful, shorefront. Number two, please allow the usage of the monies in a better way to help our Native Hawaiians find that solid ground or foundation that we need so that we can better prepare the future generation.
Yeah, the thing, Auli'i, is that Kawika is young. He hasn't seen the strangulation phenomenon that I was mentioning. Over my life anyway, I've seen so many green spaces disappear in the city, around the city, even on the neighbor islands. And he's going to learn over his lifetime what I learned over mine, namely that these things are not guaranteed, and that unless people speak up, especially the Native Hawaiians, then there will be those who would develop everything. And we would have a concrete city, a concrete parking lot. So let me ask you one more question, Kawika. Suppose you were in front of that same committee and that I asked Auli'i to be in front of a committee considering these issues in the legislature for this session. What would you say to them?
You need to focus on the well-being of the Hawaiians and to give them a future, something that they can look forward to, and make them feel proud of their lineage by not covering up all of their hard work that they've done on the land with concrete.
Okay, we're almost out of time, Auli'i. I'm going to leave the final words to you. What message would you leave with our viewers? What message would you leave with the public about this, who may or may not know exactly what's going on? What would you say to them? What takeaway would you give them?
The most important thing is that the Hawaiian people belong on this land, this aina, and we've had so many things taken away from us, the strangulation, like you talk about, Jay, and it's time. We have so many educated Hawaiians that are trying to help us, be better, go out and do what we have to do to be Hawaiian. And like Kawika said, he wants to be proud to be Hawaiian. And it's time that we allowed our Hawaiian people to afford to live here and not be pushed out. And, sooner or later, we're going to realize that we just keep selling ourselves, selling our land, selling our things, selling the materials that we have here. And it's no longer going to be Hawaii. And so for me, what I would leave here for the lawmakers, the developers, OHA, it's time that we wake up and that we allow the Hawaiian people to have an opportunity to stay here and to be proud to be Hawaiian, like Kawika said, because we are Hawaiian. This is Hawaii, and it's time for us to be Hawaiian.
Thank you, Auli'i. That's a wonderful statement. And thank you, Kawika. Thank you for coming around, both of you. McKinley forever. You want to sing the McKinley song now? No, never mind.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, both of you. Aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.